Hi, I'm Katie Coheen, and I'm one of the co-coordinators for the Center of Excellence for Autism Spectrum Disorder. And I'm going to talk to you in this capsule about some of the challenges and advantages to online learning. When we think about just the technology involved in setting up an online platform for our students, one of the barriers that just came from the beginning was the teachers' level and comfort around the technology, how comfortable they were with Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and how comfortable they were in terms of putting the supports in place for their students that they had in the online platform that they had in place on site or in the physical classrooms. And also the students' proficiency around the online platforms, especially those younger students or those who are not as tech savvy. The variability in the training experience of the support staff. So again, in terms of their ability to get online, access the breakout rooms and set up the breakout rooms with their teachers that they're supporting and put all that in place in order for us to really access all of our students. Those additional steps that exist in terms of accessing confidential information. Usually when we're on site, we have access to the confidential files. We could just go to the confidential file room and get information about the students' assessments or whatever information that we need in order for us to plan effectively for our students. Those files are not available online, so you need to really think about having some way for us to access that information that's user-friendly. Anxiety surrounding being on camera or seeing themselves online. It takes getting used to just being able to see yourself online and the students being able to have comfort with being online and seeing themselves online. So that was definitely a barrier and continues to be a barrier for some of our students who have more anxiety. Conducting assessments remotely or assessing the students. So are they really doing the work on their own? Are they getting help from their families? Are they looking online to get information? So really for us to be able to really monitor what the students are doing themselves and how proficient they are with the academic work that we're expecting of them. In terms of strategy implementation, so the difficulties in terms of really translating all of those supports that you have in place in the school. So if you had a visual schedule or you had break cards or you had I am working for cards, all of those tools that you have in place in your physical classroom, just to get those online, to have them set up in a way that they are meaningful for the students and part of their daily routine to really continue to get them engaged in learning. An adjustment to the modified curriculum goals and activities that are applicable in home. So maybe the activity was required of them in the classroom, use the materials that were in the school. So collecting attendance or collecting the recycling boxes or engaging in some other tasks that are really surrounding the physical building. So what are those goals for those students and how can we take that same goal but translate the actual hands-on experience or the actual learning experience to something that makes sense in a home? The delivery and use of manipulatives to students whom screen use is counterindicative. So if you think about those students who just have difficulty in terms of being on a screen or accessing information through a computer, for those ones when we really had to think about adjusting their goals and thinking about what's meaningful for them, a lot of that isn't just a paper and pencil or a typed in answer. So we really had to think about being creative with the families to make sure that we have those goals at home, being worked on in things with the materials that are available in the home. So that was very difficult. And programming for students who have difficulty attending to a screen. So just the difficulty with attention spans and accessing information for longer periods of time in a passive way in a computer screen, and how to be able to make that passive engagement become more active engagement for those students, and how long is the amount of time that these students are accessible, and how can we increase that time is a barrier for us. Challenges in terms of student engagement. So the temptations to engage in off-task behaviors is even more present when we think about the online platform. It's just much easier once you're on the computer to get distracted, to be gaming or surfing the internet or messaging with your peers. When you're on site and you're on the computer, the teacher can go around the classroom and really look at what the students are doing. Whereas here, you'd have to do other things in order to be able to know that your students are actually engaged in what you want them to be engaged in. Barriers to screen monitoring. So again, not being able to just easily look at everybody's screen at the exact same time. You really have to go out of your way to have one specific student screen share at a time in order to get that information. So that's definitely a difficulty that we have. Issues with monitoring a task completion for both synchronous and asynchronous activities. So those that are led by the teacher or those that are working alone, the students are working alone. No previous knowledge about the relationships of the students. So in some cases, the online learning is students that may not have come from the same school or may not have come from the same area, and now they're put into the same class. And so the teacher might not have information about those students, but also not only in terms of what their learning needs are, but in terms of just the relationship with those students that hasn't been built, that now needs to be built online. And also the students, if they're coming from different classrooms, they also need to make new relationships with peers, and that's another barrier. So they're not coming to the classroom necessarily with that comfort with the rest of the students, and going online and seeing the faces of the other students doesn't give them the same comfort as it would if they came from the same class. So just being sensitive to that, that was a big issue for us. And challenges associated with student motivation. It's really easy for the students to disconnect. You turn off your computer, you're disengaged. Whereas in the classroom, it's much easier for us to be able to motivate our students to really do those check-ins with them and to come over to their desk and see what they're doing and give them a bit of encouragement. So here we really had to make a bigger effort in order to do that. Challenges in terms of the relationships with the families and the supports of the families was another issue for us. So for many students, remote learning may necessitate active parent involvement. So just not only getting the students online or accessing the platform that the teacher is using, but also to actually be engaged. Some students require parents to be sitting next to them or sitting near them or making sure that they're on task. And so that just parent involvement became much more important for those students. Amplifying existing communication challenges between the home and school. So if a student requires a lot of parental support in order to be online and to engage in the learning environment, that relationship with the parents that the teacher has is so key in making that happen. Parent coaching may be required to support students' skill acquisition. So also, if they are going to be more involved, what is that role, and in what way can they allow their children to be participating in a meaningful way, and helping them to stay engaged, but not giving them the answers or supporting them too much that they're taking away some of the skills that we're working on. And then ambiguity regarding behavior management. So if a student is disruptive or off task or disengaged, is it the teacher's job to get them to be back? And is it possible for the teacher to do that? How much of a role do the parents play in that? Is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed and worked on with the families in order to really create a system where we can access these kids and work more, just work in a more amicable way. But there are some advantages to online learning that we noticed and that we are tapping into in order to make this as meaningful as possible. So despite those challenges, we see a reduction in attention-seeking behaviors. So if you're in the classroom and you were acting out and you were getting attention for that acting out, and the rest of the peers were laughing, and the kids might get excited about these kinds of things, well, that doesn't exist on online learning. The teacher makes sure that the students mute themselves when she is or he is teaching to the classroom. And so that interaction between the peers, that negative interaction between the peers, is minimized or non-existent. Screen sharing for students who are tempted to engage in off-task activities. So at any point, the teacher can say, well, you know what, let me see what you're doing and how far you've come and what are you working on. So you have that ability to do that. Increased opportunities for differentiation during asynchronous learning. So really, it's easy for us to say, you know what, this is what you're working on, this is what you're working on, knowing that the kids are working on their own. It's not a teacher-led activity in asynchronous learning, that you can then say, okay, these are the goals for these students, these are the goals for these students, and this is the type of work that they're going to be doing during that time. And then when you regroup, you're able to look at what the students are doing, and the kids don't see what the other kids are doing. So there isn't that sort of well, why is that harder, or why is this easier, or why are they doing work that's shorter? So you're able to sort of mask that and have kids really work on what they're working on without that sort of peer influence. You can reduce peer distraction and peer influence, like we talked about in terms of the academic work and differentiation, but also in terms of the feedback that they get in the classroom. Modified daily schedule provides more opportunities for breaks. So because you're not working around the schedule that's in the school, which is recesses at this time or lunches at this time, you can really tailor the day to be more based on what the kids needs. So that's really nice. And more opportunities for parent involvement. I think this is the first time in history where parents are really able to see what their kids are doing, how much support they require or how little. They can see the teachers teaching and build that confidence in the teacher because they're actually really able to be a fly on the wall and actually see what's happening in the classroom. So those are some of the advantages to remote learning. In the next capsule, I'm going to be talking about some of the considerations for setting up a successful remote learning experience, just keeping in mind some of the disadvantages and the advantages to online learning, and just reframing that so that we can really think about setting up the most successful online learning experience for our students. Thank you so much.